And I was very aware very early that that would make me different to everybody else. I wasn't allowed to hang out with the other kids. I wasn't allowed to have any boyfriends. I wasn't allowed to go to parties. I had a very, very strict upbringing.
Hello, my beautiful world. Hi, everyone. Elle Ballard is here today with Women of the World Network. And my next beautiful guest, all the way from Cyprus, Helen Argyrou. Hi, Helen.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's really fun to be here.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I'm glad we made it happen. Before we jump on, I want to introduce Helen first, really briefly. Helen Argyrou is originally from Africa, now living in Cyprus. She's a clinical psychologist. She's a leadership excellence coach. She's the author of The Biggest Lie Women Believe. I want to talk about that. She's a neuroscience researcher, elevating visionary leaders, speakers, and pioneers. She's just an amazing woman, and I'm so excited to have you, Helen. I'm excited everything that we are doing together, but welcome to this podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everything that you said is so deep in my heart because I have very strong desire to explore and learn about things that I've been very fascinated by. So I also just thank it very much when people share that by saying that that's what I do, because I feel it very deeply, to be able to be passionate for what we're doing. So it's
Yeah.
really great with people that also share each other's joy like that. So thank you so much for inviting me here. It's really lovely.
Yes, me too. Me too. I'm so excited about this collaboration. So more information on this collaboration coming up. We are actually, partnering with Helen's groups as well. So I am so excited. So I want to start with the first question I usually like to ask is the country you are from, you were born in Africa and now you live in a different country. And so when this happens, I like to ask what in your mind, how has your background limited or favored you?
Such a great question. Wow. And I could go on for hours and hours. I think I've always noticed the influence because I grew up in a very, you could say, multi-ethnic country. We have 11 official languages in the country that I was brought up in, which was South Africa. And I was born in Zimbabwe. So I was from a very young age very aware of how your ethnicity, your culture, the color of your skin, your race, what language you speak, where you come from, your culture, how it's affecting the way people look at you and how you look at people. I came from Greek immigrant parents who were born in Cyprus, left and wanted to make something amazing happen with their lives. They came from very poor village type background. And I was very aware very early that that would make me different to everybody else. I wasn't allowed to hang out with the other kids. I wasn't allowed to have any boyfriends. I wasn't allowed to go to parties. I had a very, very strict upbringing. And of course, that made me realize many things about the world were different to me. And it helped preserve a lot of me in a way, but also helped me desire and thirst for things. And I think that made a very big difference in the way that I went about my life. And I think now still I've learned to be very discerning, very disciplined in waiting for things, but then also very passionate and very thirstful, like to feed my thirst, to quench my thirst in life. So I think I've become someone who's very, let's just say, conscientized, very aware of my own personal interests, how they feed and nurture me, and then how to understand difference in the world, like how to respect difference and how to work with difference and how to amplify it and extract it and enjoy it. And so it's by no chance that I've ended up being very interested in people's uniqueness. And I work with that a lot. I look at what is your USP, what's your unique signature style, and how do you use that not just in your brand, but how do you live into that in actualizing, becoming more of this magical, special, unique aspect of who you are? Because there's something very different about every single person. We need to know the grace of that difference, not to try and copy paste too much and not to be swayed too much, but to know how to work with our difference and our uniqueness. One way that it's hindered me, I alluded to it a little bit, and there are many ways, is that I had a thirst. And I think in some way that also makes you kind of glorify things sometimes. You know, everything has its shadow side, even a little pebble. So nothing is all wonderful or all terrible. But I think growing up, I might have had that idea that certain things are just, wow, amazing because everybody gets to experience them, but I just couldn't, or I didn't, you know, have enough access to feeling free. So I've had to learn in my life as an adult person a lot of things on my own in working my way through the world, because I had, as I say, quite a conservative type history and background. And also how to respect the time it takes to get to things, to enjoy and revere the moment,
Yeah.
you know, not to chase for the destination, but to really enjoy the
Mm.
path,
That's
because I can be
wisdom.
very much trying to, you know,
Yeah.
create, innovate, you know, be something, do something for the world, you know, change things. I can be very activistic, and I've had to learn to slow down, to enjoy the moment, to
Yes.
appreciate the way things are, and to really respect the way life is taking its course.
I love that. I love that. And there was so many nuggets in that what you shared. And I've realized, thank you for sharing your background and experience, because and the way you grew up, because we didn't talk about that. So even,
Yeah.
I learned something about where you're from, and that's why you stand for diversity so much, because you come so many languages. That's amazing. And then the fact to enjoy the journey, not the destination. I love that reminder for all of our listeners today. So thank you for sharing that. I understand now where we definitely, the reason we connected and the reason we felt there is a definitely sync between us, because of this, diverse backgrounds and upbringing. So absolutely love that, that rich experience that life gives you, right? Living in different environments. I'm fascinated by the field of neuroscience, and of course everything you do, all these accolades, but I wanted to touch on that and clinical psychology. How did you start with that in that field? Why did you choose that field, that particular field for your professional life?
I always wanted to be a dancer. In fact, it's something I decided to write a little bit about in my book, where I start talking about the beat, the pulse. Whenever I would hear the music, I was so excited, and I had to unpack why. And I think it was because I could feel something very deeply connected to the word that I had at the time was God. I could feel God in the music. I didn't really understand what that meant to anybody else. I didn't care. I just
Yeah.
felt so deeply connected, so switched on, so in love with the sound and the pulse of the music. And that's what started off my experience with feeling very invigorated to be alive as a young person. But when I turned 13, 14, I was told by my dance teachers that I was too short, my hips were too wide, and I would never be a professional dancer. And I needed to accept that. And it was their responsibility to let young girls know, if they didn't see them in the professional dance space because of their body size, their body shape, and they know it was very difficult to do that, but it was more necessary than letting them continue with the false perception of what their destiny could be. And that was the first time in my life where I realized life has a difficulty to it than I could manage, and that I would have to learn how to navigate that. And I decided to go into the second most deepest love as a career choice when I then had to start choosing in school what to do. And it was obviously my artistic interests in art class, which started to slowly draw me into surrealism. I don't know if everybody knows what that is, but there's a very famous man called Salvador Dali, and he was the one who brought psychology to the world, saying that we have a dream life, and he would paint the dream life. And so it was called surrealism. And I remember when I looked at some of his paintings in art class, I started to really understand what he was doing from another place that I knew not many people would understand if I explained. And that in itself so intrigued me that I realized there's a deeper layer to life. There's a world behind what we see, and there's something that is unseen in the world. And I wanted to then devote my life to that, knowing that, I have quite an interest in mystical science and esoteric sciences and ancient civilizations, especially because of my Greek culture. It was quite available to me. My mother's name's Aphrodite. And all these things converged. They came together, and I realized, wow, there's actually a science out there that I could study that would get me involved in all of that. And that's when I started all my struggles in life, because that's when I realized that there's a complexity to living in this kind of iceberg where most of us see what's on top of the water, but actually the whole buried iceberg underneath there. It's a hard task to go into understanding the underworld and understanding the unconscious, and then being able to live in the world with what you learn. So for me, neuroscience came out of a big interest in returning to that world of rhythm and music. Neuroscience was all about understanding how rhythm affects the brain and how rhythm changes behavior and why it brings this kind of enigmatic, amazing experience that I had listening and also playing. And so now I specialize in using rhythm for special cases. So I used to do drum therapy for special needs here in Cyprus. I was invited to the Ministry of Education to teach workshops to help also with racial issues, because the schools started moving out of what we call homogenous kind of groups and more into mixed groups. And you could see kids didn't know how to deal with kids from other cultures. And when you take a drum and say, hey, everybody has a drum in their country, you just have to look far back in your history and see, then can we put all these drums together and we all play together? Then it's a nice symbolic way to help kids learn to work together. It's a very interesting journey, and I'm very happy I chose psychology, but there are times where it's hard to live in the world as a psychologist because people aren't quite sure that they should say too much around you. Sometimes want to say everything and then drop it off at you and then sort of get up and leave, but then they'll never see you again. They'll just pretend that they don't know you. So it's got its own price to pay, but I'm eternally grateful that I took that path. Very fulfilling and still is in many ways.
So interesting. So interesting. Drum therapy. Interesting. And the whole rhythm idea behind it, it's just fascinating. Neuroscience is fascinating to me. It's such an interesting field. And yeah, in the way rhythm, because there is a dance therapy, right? So drum therapy totally makes dance therapy and I do dancing, I do ballroom dancing, and the whole reason behind it and the way our body moves with it and the way our body reacts, it's just fascinating to me, how all of that. And so we not too much here, we are really in alignment, and I like to talk about that. I love to talk about that, just because it's just so important. It's just it's been fascinating in my own personal experience, just to watch how that happens. But yeah, so thank you for sharing that. Very, very interesting. This is Women of the World Network podcast, Empower Global Women in Business. But this is a question, I talk to so many amazing women from different parts of the world. What does it mean for you to be a woman of the world?
It's such an interesting question to be answering at this time, because we've seen such growth around the world with more and more women connecting up with each other. And I never thought I would end up in this exact place, but I always had a sense that I wanted to meet the world. And I knew that was part of my destiny, you could say. As a young person, I was quite intuitive and quite internationally minded, and always liked to get to know more people and meet more people and understand them and put together this really amazing picture of what the world is and what life is about. As I explained before, I was always studying human behavior, and to be connecting to the world is about, I think, a kind of awareness about the togetherness and collaboration and synergy have amongst us, whether we do well with that or not, and a type of responsibility to also take care of that continuity and consistency and integrity of living together. And that many women nowadays, I think, are aware of that and promoting that in different ways, and are able to do it on a much more galvanized, powerful type level, because they are consciously aiming for it and working very hard to connect more and more women together. I can definitely say that I feel that is a very strong reality for myself in my life, and I see the power of it. So I think Women of the World, because I relate women more to the feminine energy and the feminine principle, I think we have a responsibility. We're custodians in a way for this planet as much as we are for children, youth, and the well-being of our communities, that we can care, love, and support the planet with a type of heart-based energy, maybe differently to men. So the woman of the world for me, and being a woman of the world, is about taking on that responsibility.
I love the depth of this answer. Thank you for your perspective, Helen, because it seems on the top of it seems it's a simple question. And even though we come from different cultures, there is this one foundation that unites us all, that connects us all. And I wanna congratulate you and celebrate you for all your achievements, for all this thirst for knowledge. And I feel like in your life, your thirst for learning more. What will be, and I can imagine there are so many lessons, but what would be one of the major lessons that you would want to share with our listeners today, building a business, as a multinational woman?
Was for me to understand if what I was reading and learning about in terms of women's type of struggles with power were actually true or not. And so from that research, it became very deeply worked through in me. We seem to be a little stuck as women. And I do think genuinely stuck for good reason, but still stuck nonetheless, and quite soon to be unstuck. So that's the good news. Don't want to make it all too dark here, but we have been stuck, and I think for a while, in this idea that power comes from somewhere and has to be given to us. And I think when we're building businesses, or when we're becoming who we want to be, brace yourself. I'm about to say something that might be really hard for your ego to handle, but it's a really important piece of truth. We are also lying to ourselves. And that's the part I investigated. And so I really do think there are ways that we sabotage ourselves that we cannot afford to anymore. We simply will not get any further if we don't stop. And we have to understand why we are and what we can do about it. And so I think the biggest thing that I've learned is how to get much more real with myself about what I can't do well and what I have to start learning how to do, what I have to delegate out because I simply just take too long to do it, or I get, I don't get paid to do it. So it takes me so long. And I've had to be like really hardcore with myself, and I'm still not done, as I'm sure nobody here listening to me is just going to go and fix it either. You got to be really patient and deeply empathic with yourself, very compassionate about this that I'm saying, is that we have to take power, not wait for it to come to us, not get it from someone else, not expect our mentors, coaches, our clients, whoever, to keep empowering us. We have to become a lot more emotionally independent and emotionally honest, emotionally strong as women, because we are incredible. We are resilient. We have everything we need inside of us, but we've just gotten stuck in projecting this idea outside of ourselves, and unfortunately looking for a lot of validation from the external back in, because we have to decide and command that we want to stand in that place, and then no longer give our power away, no longer look for it outside, no longer have to go and prove that we have it, because then it's going to come from the inside out. We will be radiating it, manifesting it, attracting it. I think we are ready to release, and I'm doing everything I can to contribute to the deeper understanding of it on a psychological level. So I talk about self-betrayal and self-deceit. And how do we break out of that denial? And there are some hard truths to deal with, like we are still, in many ways, amateurs at holding power, and we do need to get more comfortable with it, and more wise, and more self-autonomous, self-reliant in that. But not to say that that means we don't have support, or that we can't ask for things, or we can't delegate. No, none of that. It just means to be able to have a conviction in ourselves that we are leaders of incredible lineages. We have amazing wisdom and power as women. We are magical. We bring an empathic, caring, estrogen-based way of nurturing ourselves, each other. And unfortunately, sometimes we put that in places where we out-nurture ourselves. And we have to stop that. And there is a mental part, an emotional part, and a physical part to adjust. I think running great businesses and being monetizable and financially stable, will not happen until we do that.
I definitely see myself. I was challenged in this own area where I started building my business, when I started charging. That's where it's so interesting how that happens. And yes, definitely you seek validation from outside. But just like you said, once we see it in ourselves, once we actually really adopt that and accept that and embrace that part, we actually bring it on the outside. It's just so interesting how that happens. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations to you and to all your network for having you as their role model to do that. Because when we can model that to more and more women, that's the kind of mirror that they get, that it's okay to ask, to have, to receive.
Thank you. Yes, beautiful. And by the way, Women of Truth, you mentioned it briefly. We are collaborating with Women of Truth, and this whole conversation actually really, I felt like as I'm listening to you, I'm learning from you and about your group. And so I have this insights and ideas coming up. So I'm looking forward to discussing this, but we will have this amazing collaboration, creating this bridge, uniting women. So I'm so excited about that. Awesome. So the first question is, your favorite book name is?
Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Ooh, I heard that before. I heard that so many times. I need to read that book. Beach or mountains?
Mountains. I love mountains.
Favorite international destination to visit?
That I haven't visited or that I have visited? Either.
Either one, I guess.
Japan. I would love to see Japan now.
Yeah.
And I love visiting India, and I love the desert, any desert.
Summer or winter?
Spring. I can't say summer because it means 40. Winter, I mean, I can't be honest and say I love winter more than summer either. So I'd have to choose spring.
My final question, things that you have discovered about yourself recently.
I have discovered my patience and a sense of responsibility in caring for my parents with a kind of empathy that I never really thought or I required before, which I'm still practicing and learning about.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us. And so I'm so glad that you took this time to be with us today from the other side of the planet. And I am excited for our collaboration. Please tell our listeners how they can find you.
You can find me and what we're busy with on Facebook under Women of Truth Yin. I have an exclusive group there. You pre-qualify for that group, and then it means you get some very specific track on what we're doing all the way through. And you can also jump onto our VIP speaker list for that, where we do events in Cyprus and now in Dubai. And we will next year be doing some collaborations, possibly in Saudi Arabia and New York, and maybe India as well. We like to blend the spiritual with the woman leadership component because it's an important piece to not leave ourselves in pieces. And we also are now going to be meeting on the 19th of March for our first little meetup with Women of Truth and Women of the World Network.
Yes.
And what will happen months after that, because every month we're looking to connect with another amazing group of women. So it would be very exciting that you can actually connect with, different groups and test out your different skills, pitching, really putting your project out there, but also, what amazing opportunities could come from that. And you can also find me on my website, Helen Aha. My brand is called Aha Intelligence because I really believe insight, your own personal insight, is your own special, unique moment where you have a way of understanding the world in your own special aha moment. So Aha, HelenAha.com. You look at the ahas that I teach. I teach 3 types of ahas, one on leadership and pioneering your own innovative destiny. And then second one is on Women of Truth. Third one is on druminspire, how to use drumming in different ways to go into the flow state. Thank you so much, Elle. It's been really nice chatting with you and just being honored and celebrated, as I'm very happy to do with you also in our next meetup. So I look forward to you and sharing you with everyone at Women of Truth as well, and also the wider audience that are interested in Dubai. So
yes, absolutely. Yay, I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you so much for being here today. And with that, Have an amazing evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Bye.